the Isle of Man has the longest summer recess of all the parliaments and all the assemblies, the devolved assemblies in the British Isles. And in October 2017, I took a motion to Tynwald to suggest that instead of October, that we came back in September.
You took a bit of a kicking, really, though, didn't you, in truth?
I got absolutely hammered.
6 votes in all.
Yes, there were 6 enlightened members who kind of also had the same view as me in terms of we need to modernise because we're in a 24/7 world at the moment and lots of things are happening all the time. And my suggestion was 3 months. Could we not shorten that to 2 months? But it wasn't a close vote. And
all the departments, I think the Chief Minister had approached them and they all came back to him saying, no, we find the 3 months is really useful.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a popular suggestion, I think, would be a fair summary. And things don't stop in the summer. So, there's constituency work for members, and also the departments are very busy, particularly in Treasury, so we have lots of budgetary meetings in the summer. But the point that I was making was actually this can delay things and it can cause some issues. And we're now seeing some of those issues because at the last sitting of Tynwald in July, I moved a motion that we should urgently review the strategic plan housing allocation numbers, which affect the Eastern Area Plan. And the public inquiry is starting in September, but unfortunately...
Well, you're not having the combined vote till October,
correct.
Are you?
So a motion was moved, which actually was rejected by 17 votes to 13, but Tim Baker asked for a combined vote, which is entirely up to him. But
He's
what
not
that means...
done the maths, though, has he?
Well, if we park that for one moment, the issue is that we're going to start the public inquiry into the Eastern Area Plan when actually Tynwald is yet to have the vote on whether we should change the strategic plan housing allocation number, which, if you remember, is tracking massively ahead of our population, so 6,000 ahead of the population target. So that's a concern for many people in terms of the plan needs to reflect the reality.
So this is
of the
chicken before the egg, then?
Well, what I'm asking for is that the public inquiry of the Eastern Area Plan is moved back until after Tynwald has this important vote. Because if Tynwald votes that we need to have the strategic plan to reflect the reality of our population situation, then that clearly presents a very different remit for the inspector. And there's other benefits as well, because the Cabinet Office are now working up additional evidence, which I've asked for, in terms of the 6,500 vacant properties which were identified in the last census. And as you know, nearly 2,500 of those are in Douglas. So it's a really important issue. We're also expecting in October from Chris Thomas an update on brownfield site incentives. And many people, including myself, feel that brownfield and urban regeneration should be the focus rather than concreting over the countryside. So in many ways, it feels really unsatisfactory to have the public inquiry ahead of such an important vote. And there have been suggestions that this is filibustering by the Cabinet Office to have the inquiry ahead of the vote, but I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure it's just one of these things that's happened, but that I believe the correct course of action is to delay the public inquiry until after this vote. And I think also that would help provide confidence to the public that we're doing this in a considered way.
Can I bring you back to the parliamentary time
Yes.
and using that? And a lot of people said Parliament business, whether it be Keys or Tynwald, needs to fit around the modern age.
Yeah.
But there was also this public perception from the last Tynwald sitting when there was no suspension of standing orders to take the questions that were out there.
Yes.
And it looked like a rush to the recess.
Yeah, I thought that was unfortunate, so I voted that we should have taken questions. Unfortunately, that did not carry
on the losing side again.
I was. It was quite a close vote, as I recall. And so I think that sends a poor message. I can understand the frustration potentially about the large number of questions submitted by a number of people, but at the end of the day, that is their right, and that's what part of their role is to to raise queries and questions. So yes, I was in favour of extending the question time sitting. And Tynwald sits for 3 days. It's unusual that we sit for all 3 days. We did on this occasion because we had an important debate, which was adjourned because of the combined vote.
But you get a log jam, don't you? You get a lot of business coming in
Well,
July ahead of the recess, and then an awful lot will come in October because you've had 3 months away.
Yes, we do. I mean, it's a similar situation in December as well, ahead of the kind of festive season. But I guess the point I was making was that we actually finished in good time on the third day. We could easily have taken the other questions in the afternoon on the third day, and we allocate that time, so why aren't we using it?
10:30 start, you are recalling from the
Oh,
debate
yes.
now that you said, well, not everyone gets the train, do they, to come to Tynwald? Shouldn't we start earlier?
That's right. And then someone said, yes, actually, I do get the train.
The speaker.
Well, I think what that was in 2017. I think there's lots of traditions about Tynwald, which is great. I think we can retain some of those traditions, but I think we also should modernise.
It's not untouchable, is it?
Well, there's not many people start their working day at 10:30. So I know from talking to other members, we find that in some ways quaint, but also it's not entirely helpful that some of the debates go on to quite late in the evening. Less so now, because generally I will and others will object to that and say this is important. We should give it our full attention and we should come back fresh. You hear stories that Tynwald used to sit till midnight and beyond. So I don't think that's particularly healthy. So yes, I think that was the 2017 debate. I guess
how long are you going to leave it before you bring it back?
Well, I think would more people vote for it? I think probably more people would. I think the new LegCo members are quite progressive people. I think it's probably going to be a question which will be submitted in the next Parliament, and I think it probably has more chance of being successful then. And certainly I would encourage the next Parliament to modernise some of our practices. We can still retain the tradition. But at the moment, I'm really focused on the Eastern Area Plan, and that's very important to not just people in the East, because remember the strategic plan numbers affect the East, the North and the West, all of which are being planned at the moment, and that's 83% of our population, which is an incredible chunk of our island that we're planning using figures which are hopelessly overestimated.